疲れ様です。お疲れ様です。お疲れ様です。お疲れ。
お疲れ様 is a basic, yet surprisingly versatile phrase in Japanese. If you live inside Japanese society, I can guarantee you'll hear it at least once a day, if not more. To me, it feels like that one song that never leaves your recently playlist on Spotify. It's not the main character, but it's a constant presence in our lives. Especially if you're an office worker. When you arrive at the office, when you leave, when you step in the elevator, or even when you start talking to your boss. I still don't fully understand what the phrase actually means, but its influence runs much deeper than it seems. There was even a time when I stopped wanting to hear it altogether. So I spent the past year looking closely at it, trying to understand it. And today, I want to take you along what I found. My first exposure to Otsukaresama goes all the way back to my toddlerhood. It was something like overhearing adults' conversations or TV dramas playing in the background. Again, I did not understand the meaning, but I remember it was there. So let's call this the recognition phase. What came next was the internalization phase. I entered school, joined sport clubs. That to me was a place where I learned the social dynamics of Japanese society through unspoken rules and rituals. And of course, I used to speak and act in front of senpai. And Otsukaresama was a big part of the culture. When everything was done from the training to cleanup, we would gather in a circle and say together, Otsukaresama deshita. Then, everyone would start packing up and heading home without anyone explicitly saying, you can go home. So in that ritual, was Otsukaresama a goodbye? Was it a well done for today? Or was it saying, we've done enough, so we can go home now and rest? Back then, it wasn't something I questioned, because it felt like the right thing to hear. It felt, deserved. In the adulting phase, the one I'm still processing, the influence of that phrase reached its zenith. Fresh out of college, I became a Japanese 9-to-5 office worker. That office scene I was as a child was not my reality. And from that point on, I was fed with Otsukaresama. I was fed for 2 months. I had to go through something dramatic, so I left before things got worse. So for the first time ever, I tried something called a career break, a recovery phase, however you want to call it. And what happened was, I became so clumsy with Otsukaresama. I didn't know how to, or didn't even want to receive it anymore, because the only thing it brought me was so much guilt. Looking back, being told Otsukaresama at the office felt like receiving a public approval stamp. Just a basic phrase, but in my body, it sounded as if someone was saying, you've strived enough today, so you deserve the rest. So no wonder sleeping until 1 p.m. on weekend felt completely reasonable back then. But since then, without Otsukaresama, I didn't know what was enough, when it was enough. If no one draws a line for you, how do you know when you've done enough and when you're allowed to stop and rest? I got lost in the idea of enough. And legitimacy was the only way I could think of. Something I assumed every normal adult just has. Waking up at 6 in the morning, getting ready, commuting to the same place every day, working, getting those tasks done for 8 hours a day, being tired at the end of the day, then you earn your proper Otsukaresama and rest comes naturally after that. ちゃんとしないと. That was all I could see. So I kept pushing. I kept doing things for the sake of doing things. I waited and waited for the guilt-free Otsukaresama moment. But it just wouldn't come. Instead, I kept running on fumes inside this vicious loop. I tried doing, but I had no energy left, So I tried resting, but the guilt kicked in. Resting felt like falling behind. So I stopped resting too early and went back to doing it again. And the longer I stayed, the louder "Otsukare-sama" echoed in my head. So one day, I stopped, turned around a bit, and looked closely at it. That's when the loop started to crack. Looking closely at "Otsukare-sama" meant unpacking a cultural iceberg. It changed how I see not just the word, but effort itself and what enough looks like. Allow me to read through the notes. "Otsukare-sama" is made of 3 elements. O, a politeness marker. It wraps whatever comes after it in respect and elegance. In this case, tsukare. Fatigue. Fatigue, wrapped in respect. Interesting. Sama is a word of honor. We use it for Mr., Miss. We also use it to describe an expected form or proper state. So together, are we honoring fatigue? Is exhaustion an expected form? Is being tired something noble? When you're a native speaker, you don't analyze this. You just take it all in, like breathing air. And then I looked at the kanji. This radical in tsukare is yamaidare. It comes from the image of a sick person lying on a bed. And in dictionaries, it doesn't only mean to get tired. It also means to weaken. Then there's ro, a kanji we use to describe labor, fatigue, hard work, and "Otsukare-sama" culture itself, what we call negirai no bunka. The original form of this was made up of roof, 2 flames, and power. It is said to be the image of a fire burning under a roof and someone using all their power to put it out. In other words, using energy in the face of a disaster, pushing through something harsh. Once I saw this, "Otsukare-sama" was no longer a basic phrase. Yes, it is something I grew up hearing, but along with that, without me noticing, I was inhaling the cultural beliefs and absorbing the equation underneath it. Effort being strongly tied to fatigue that gains recognition and that gains permission to rest. So I went deeper into an iceberg, into the history, into the cultural role of "Otsukare-sama." And what I found was this. It began with "Gokuro-sama" in Edo period, evolved into "Otsukare-sama" during the Meiji era, and eventually became what we use today. So originally, it wasn't just a greeting. It meant, "Anata no hataraki wo kichinto mitodokete imasu yo." And communicating this mattered, because in Japan, work wasn't seen just as the individual productivity, but as kyōdōtai no hoshi. So acknowledging someone's effort became a way of maintaining social harmony. And with that perspective, suddenly a lot of dots started connecting. In school, we were taught collective responsibility, rentai sekinin. We were even graded on shudan kodo, coordinated group behavior, in PE class. Rules were absolute, sometimes quite unreasonable, and once you enter society, duty comes first. That's when the realization hit me. I've been practicing how to exist inside a community and maintain its harmony my entire life. I guess, in a way, "Otsukare-sama" had quietly been holding my mental balance together, like my own harmony. And if you look at the early part of the shift, honoring fatigue gradually become honoring effort itself and eventually valuing the attitude of working hard. Doesn't that put so much weight on the process, not just the result? That feels very Japanese to me. A capitalist society, yet not entirely obsessed with results. But that led me to another question. What kind of effort has been considered admirable? What counts as enough? Is rest something we have to earn? If these values were shaped by culture, are they absolute? Or does the way we define trying hard change depending on culture? What if we zoom out? Hey, can you teach me how to rest? I've been trying so hard to earn it, but I don't know where the line is.
I think you're asking the wrong person.
What do you mean?
Well, same problem. Not exactly, but I've never really known how to draw that line either. Rest is actually one of the hardest things for me. I think whenever I stop doing, this voice from South Africa pops into my head. Keep working hard or you'll end up on the streets. And whenever I hear that, it motivates me to keep on going.
Wow. Okay.
And the feeling of doing enough is something I haven't sat with for a very long time. For me, doing enough was always achieving a very high goal or receiving some very prestigious award. But even when I achieved the goal or received the reward, I never stopped and appreciated how far I'd come. I'd just move on to the next big goal.
Yeah, I can see where that comes from. But what about Australia? Did that change anything for you?
That's a good catch. I've lived in both worlds, and I'm extremely grateful for that. What it taught me is that these ideas aren't set in stone.
What did you notice there?
Well, I can't speak for everyone, but what I found is that if you just do your best, that's enough. And it makes sense. Australia is a very large landmass with a small population and lots of natural resources. There's plenty to go around for everyone. It's a lot less competitive than South Africa.
Right. Different cultures don't just mean different languages. They mean different histories, different geography, different societies, and from that, different ideas of effort, different lines for enough.
Yeah. So I guess the question is, who gets to draw the line for what enough means? Do we keep following the line that was drawn for us?
Or do we start drawing our own? Or
maybe we're already enough.
How I see adulting has changed a lot over the past year. Once you're an adult, you're going to be responsible for your own life. I still believe that. But I think I misunderstood what it actually meant. For the past 23 years, adulting for me meant having a proper job, earning a proper income, paying rent, just being proper in those ways. Now I see something different. Adulting for me means being able to choosing what you actually value, choosing what you truly care about, choosing what you want to believe, and choosing how you want your world to operate. Or that's just the kind of adult I want to become. But at least now I know what I'm moving towards. And I'll invite you to ask yourself the same questions. If you put aside expectations for a moment, what do you actually value? What kind of effort do you believe in? What does enough look like in your world? My culture, my history, and this beautiful mother tongue Japanese and otsukare sama made me ponder on these questions. And I had no other option but to share this with the world, with you guys. So wherever you are right now, I'd be so happy if this story reached something deep inside you. I'd love to hear your thoughts. Share your world, share your perspective in the comments. I'm Ayane, and I am someone who loves storytelling. This is my first short film project as a filmmaker in the making. My dream now is to tell other people's story through film and make that my life's work. And I'm starting just now with my own story. And I enjoy this too, so we'll see how we go. But so thank you for receiving lots of love. Let me give you some hug. Bye! Next time!